Mhm.
Awesome. All right. Thank you for being here today, everybody. All right. So again, I'm going to be talking about strength training, the importance for all of you to be able to move the best as you can. All right. So a little bit of what my background is. One of the focus I want to highlight first is Work Strong. So at Work Strong, I help individuals of all different ages move better after injury. So it's kind of helped me talk about what I'm talking about today because often there's some people have concerns with strength training and pain or after injury. I'm going to be addressing that today. And so that's just really important in regards to moving better for your everyday life activities and what you want to do and love to do. Today, I'm going to cover these things. Of course, I'm not just talking about what I think is good about strength training is good for you. I want to cite some of the studies and what people in the industry have been saying in regard to that. And also want to highlight some of the tools because some things you might know about, other things you might not, but just things that you can use to help you move better and move stronger. And of course, suggestions that I have for you to move better. Quick thing I want to talk about though first is, of course, consulting your doctor. Before you start exercising, if you're new to strength training, you want to give that thumbs up to make sure you're cleared for it. Any injuries that you have, address them. It's important for that. And I just have this here, often in the industry, no matter what age people are, they think pain has to be a part of strength training or exercise in general. We don't want that. Often pain is an indicator you should not be doing something, especially if you're exercising. There are often ways to move around it or work around it, but especially if exercising on your own, we don't want this. Being uncomfortable or honestly not liking it, that's fine, but we don't want you to move into pain. All right, first, strength training defined. This is definition here. At the end of the day, it's really moving with external weight or finding ways to move, whether you're fighting something like a dumbbell or a kettlebell or body weight, something you're resisting. The force could be a weight or it could be something like body weight exercise. This is often what we think about when we think of strength training. These people moving heavy weight, moving different directions. Often people, when they see this, they're like, oh, I can't do that. And the thing is, these are athletes. They have trained for things like this. You might not want to put your hands over your head like this with this much weight or have this much weight in your back, and that's fine. This is one variation of strength training. This is two. The main thing I'm focused on as a fitness professional is your form. I care less how much weight you have in your hand, but I want to look at it as your back or your knees or your neck, just the same here. So often people, I get it, they're intimidated by strength training. They see this, they're like, oh, I can't do this, but you can. There are different ways of moving better in the gym and outside the gym. But we're here today, we're talking about, why is strength training good for you? Often when it comes to my clients or anybody, I want to emphasize how it connects to everyday life. Because my job, I geek out on stuff like this. I love exercising, I like getting in the gym, and I get it when you're like, that's all I have to do. Like, why do I have to do that? The thing is, I want you to be able to lean into how you can do things better in everyday life. We often might downplay it or really honestly don't really recognize how much strength is a part of everyday life. Let's say we're doing groceries. Like groceries can be a full body experience. You're lifting things off the ground, you're putting them in the car, you're putting them on your shelf, you're walking into your house or your apartment or upstairs. That calls for strength. Picking up things off the ground, regardless how heavy or light they are, it still calls for strength. Opening jars, opening things. Often hand strength is from things like forearm strength or shoulder complex. It comes down to your hand strength. Walking upstairs. At some point, even if her hands isn't on the railing, at some point, one leg is doing all the work, like this leg is bringing itself up there. All these things involve strength, activities of daily life. But of course, I don't want to neglect the things that make you happy, the things that are fun, things like gardening right here. So there's an article just came out today, talked about why gardening is good for you. If you're a gardener, you know this. It can be a very physical thing that you're doing. She's on her hands and knees here. She's pulling, she's pushing, moving in different directions. Strength training can help her do this better. You might not think golf calls for much strength. I don't play golf, but I do know that for them to come up from this position calls for strength. Because here, kind of like with the stairs, one foot or one leg is doing a lot of work versus the other is kind of stabilizing here. When she's playing with her grandkids here, she has to use her legs, her core, and her grip strength to pull them back and forth. Vacations, even just prepping for it, you're putting stuff in your luggage, you're putting them in the car and the overhead bin. different directions, moving with that luggage or with things around your shoulders, that calls for strength. Things you enjoy doing often call for strength you might not really realize at the time. One of the main things, one of my main motivators for people for strength training is to avoid injury. Now, I get it. What I'm not saying is that you can't get injured. That does happen. Like at Work Strong, I help people post-injury. So people come to us with back issues, with shoulder issues, with knee issues. We find a way to help them move better. And strength training in the gym, they move better in everyday life. But let's say you haven't an injury yet. What we want to a lot of times do with strength training, it helps people have a better strategy. He might not have the best strategy to pick that box up off the ground. So with strength training in regards to just knowing how to use his core or his legs, helps him to avoid injury. Now I get it. Hips and shoulders can be a place a lot of people have a lot of issues. But like I said before, after PT, after some work with somebody, a best way to help to avoid that happening again is some aspect of strength training. All right, moving on to the research. Now, I'm going to highlight some of these. And of course, I'm not going to read all of them off, but just look for the green. I'm going to highlight some certain things I want to focus on here. So this study here kind of highlights functional capacity. So we talk about exercise with strength regarding endurance, muscle power, and functional capacity. So functional capacity is, end of the day, it's subjective. Let's say for me, my functional capacity, I wake up in the morning, I work out. When I have clients, I have to be able to carry, lift, move things at various different weights. I have to be able to do that without hurting myself. And after that, I have my errands, my everyday life activities. That's my functional capacity. So it's subjective, what my everyday life demands. Yours can be completely different. And so I just want to just encourage you to think about how you have to move in everyday life and use things like endurance. You might not think you might be an endurance runner, but let's say you're outside in the garden. You're raking over and over and over. That calls for endurance. For the muscle power of lifting things or pushing things and pulling things. So power is strength plus speed. Let's say you have a stubborn fridge door that you have to open up. That calls for power. With the strength and pulling that quickly, the power to do that with confidence without hurting yourself. So your functional capacity is what you want to be able to do every day. All right, this one kind of focuses on mortality rate here. And so this focuses on upper and lower body muscular strength, regardless of age. The reason I highlight mortality rate here, there's a lot of aspects of exercise and movement that are kind of connected here. I'm going to just go forward to this. So hand grip strength. It might not seem like this could be important, but let's think about all the things in life you have to grasp, whether it be a jar or a doorknob or even like a steering wheel. All this involves grip. What's interesting about this one, it talks about blood pressure. I haven't seen this one before. I found this one the other day. So that's kind of interesting in regards to that and mortality rate. Just to keep on thinking about how you have to move in everyday life in regards to gripping things. This study in studies of gerontology here talks about muscle mass and strength. Now with muscle mass here, it's not about how big you are. It's not about how many muscles you have. It's about strength. I'm sure you've seen there's always been all these different articles and videos talking about the blue zones in the world. The most recent one on Netflix, I think it was called How to Live to Be 100. A lot of those individuals they're not huge, they're not really big, but they have the strength to be able to move how they want to move in everyday life. So that's a lot of times in the industry, I know you might see people with a lot of muscles and everything, but honestly, it's about their strength, not about their mass of their muscles. Now, that was the title of the study here. This is a quote coming up next. Gets more specific. Lower muscle strength, quads, and grip. So quadriceps, interesting to kind of target that as the front of the leg, but still you have to walk places. You have to get out of the chair. You have to be able to get things off the ground using your legs. And one thing I want to highlight with grip strength here too is that there are always variations. People who have issues with their grip or their hands, there are tools out there that people can use to still work on strength. So even though you might have issues with your hands, it's still possible to work on your upper body strength at the same time. For this one, RE refers to resistance exercise here. So the most optimal strategy is for muscle and bone mass. So I highlight bone mass here because the one thing you probably know, like when you go to the doctor, you want to get that thumbs up that your bone density is good. So that's one thing that's important for strength training, not just how strong you are, but also that also helps your bone density. And I have clients who have osteoporosis. It doesn't mean you can't exercise. Might be exercising in a different way, but you still can benefit from strength training. So many studies talk about this, reduce the risk of osteoporosis, but also if you have it, it can help slow down bone loss. And if a fall does happen, people who have lean into strength training and bone density techniques, it's great when they don't have any kind of fractures. That's definitely a good sign. So we definitely want that to be present. Think of exercise in general, or just especially strength training, as kind of the building blocks of things. We want to get those blocks a good foundation here so you can move well. So avoidable falls here. Avoidable falls, what I mean by that is, I'm not talking about walking a tightrope and falling. I'm talking about flat surface, change directions, and you fall. You want to avoid those. Strength training is one way. Of course, balance training is great too, but having that strength to move with confidence is just as important. Bone density I covered. She's seen a lot of articles out there about brain health and the importance of that. Strength training is, of course, connected. Confidence, of course, is subjective, but that's huge. To have the confidence to be able to move how you want to move in different directions and move things with strength. I highlighted coordination here for a reason, because it might not seem that important at this point, but still, the more you practice in the gym, the better you are in everyday life. Here's an example right here. So I'm not asking you to do a tire flip, but just notice Martha's form right here, which means her hip back. Same form as the gentleman here lifting a box. So however she's doing this, whether tire flips or squatting or different variations of this movement, that coordination is going to help her or help him when he does the same thing. So right now it's using his core just like she did, and his legs. All right, moving on to fitness leaders and what they say. So this quote was from a book called The Barbell Prescription by Jonathan Sullivan and Andy Baker. It was about strength training for life after 40. So here he really hones in on how strength is important to maintain independence. So again, I'm not talking about with a lot of muscles, like having to lift a heavy weight, but just be able to be independent, everyday life activities, and move with confidence and independence. This is probably arthritis foundation. Now, often individuals, understandably, they are hesitant to lean into strength training because of pain and arthritis. As you note here, they don't talk about going a full hour or going all out. They're talking about 30 minutes daily, 5 days a week, or just breaking up and taking breaks. And often, especially if somebody is guided with somebody who knows how to help them move better, a little bit can go a long way in regards to exercise and people with arthritis. But again, weight bearing could be body weight. It has to be a lot of weight. Resistance exercise could be different tools. It doesn't have to be a dumbbell or a kettlebell, which I'll review later. All right, this is a quote by American Council on Exercise here. Resistance training and longevity. I didn't put it in green here, but notice the last line. Your current level of physical activity. Just to remind you, so we're not asking people when they're strength training to go out and get the heaviest weight possible, the most difficult thing. We want you to meet yourself where you're at and start where you are. That way, it helps you to continue doing it and also enhance your quality of life. It all takes time. All right, for the tools, a lot of tools you're probably familiar with. We're just going to touch some of these. Machines. You've seen these machines at the gym, I'm sure, before. There's a lot of new ones. And what's great is that if you get somebody to help you, to show you how to use it. Often they do have instructions on them, but still somebody showing you can go a long way for safety. So you have somebody doing a leg press here, chest press, and curls. These are great. I have some of my clients do some machines, but the one thing I want just to note here, everybody is sitting down. They are using their muscles, but things like this in everyday life, they're using their core and other parts of their body when they're moving. So just back up for a second. So when they're using the machines, this is great. Get some instruction on this, but mix into that some way or shape or form of using the same muscles off of the machines as well too. Kettlebells and dumbbells, different ways of working with strength. Back to the grip strength. When you're holding those, it's helping your grip strength. You don't have to do things like squeezing something unless it's part of PT. To work at that, it could be part of the exercise. You're gripping something and moving weight. It's going to help your grip strength and your stability to be able to do things in everyday life, like opening cans or holding car doors or pushing things or pulling things. bodyweight exercises are great. It's a good way to focus on form, and especially if you don't have any equipment. See me here to the left, I'm doing a wall push-up, a variation of this. There's always ways to do this. You don't have to do a push-up on the ground. I'm still using my core and my shoulders at the time when I'm doing the wall push-ups, and it's great for people who are post-injury or just honestly focus on a way to really successfully perform the movement without hurting themselves or their form is being compromised. On the right, somebody doing a bodyweight squat right here, great way to work on stability and also balance. Like let's say this gentleman here, he might be able to do, let's say a 200-pound leg press. That's great. But is he able to do this come to a squat? Is he able to get to the toilet and is he able to sit in that chair or something like that easily and come up to standing? That's what's important. Suspension equipment. So suspension equipment essentially is something that is anchored high, like in a high ceiling or like something that's above your head. So it's able to take your body weight. This is my client Ruth using suspension tool doing a row. She's pulling right here, doing a row. And right here, her hand assisted, doing a step up. So one foot's coming up. She feels really stable here. Many different levels can use suspension equipment. You can use every part of your body, honestly, everything from upper body to lower body. Some are travel like this. This goes over a door. Often gyms will have things like this. They'll be hanging that you can use. Different levels can be very helpful. And also these travel because they're not really heavy. It's suspension equipment. Resistance bands, you might recognize some like these from PT that are without any handles. Different levels like this. So with the bands, it could be like a 5-pound weight or a 10-pound weight, just all different kinds of difficulty in pulling that's going to give you some resistance regarding your pushing or pulling or moving different directions. Ones with handles right there. And a lot of times when you buy these, it might be like in a package or different ones of different weights that you use for these. Aqua exercise is often poo-poo. People think it's too easy, but you can definitely have a difficult workout or a challenging workout working in the water. These foam dumbbells here, when you push them across the water, when it's up top right there, it's easy. When you push it into water, you have more resistance. If you go to a place that has aqua classes, especially, it might be, I think it's called Arthritis Foundation approved or something like that. The water's a certain temperature, and it's even better on your joints when you're in it. Great way to work on balance, strength, and many other things in aqua class. It's a great way to get a workout and add some variation to versus just working out on land. All right, suggestions I have in regards to working out. So back to your doctor. Just to double tap this, that especially if you're just starting strength training or exercise, you want to get that thumbs up to make sure everything is okay. If it's a chronic disease or something going through joints, find out what you should or shouldn't be doing, or get some PT first before you go there. Pain can be a big something some people can avoid doing strength training. At that point, after talking to your doctor, it might be helpful with a PT or a trainer that can help you move better without pain. The last thing you want you to do is move into pain when you're exercising. But oftentimes, the people that I see who have the most success with strength training, they have other allies that help them. They might get some targeted massage. Let's say that your range of motion isn't the best. You're trying to figure out how to better range of motion to either squat or push or pull or raise your hands above your head. It might be helpful to have somebody get some hands on you to help loosen up different parts of your body. Or you can do like a yoga class, something like that, to help you be more flexible. That's just as important and help you move better when you're strength training. And also your doctor might be able to tell you to anything you're taking that can, any effects when you're exercising you might need to know about, like your blood pressure or something like that. And you can't neglect what you're eating. I'm not qualified to give advice on what you're eating, but a nutritionist can tell you everything from vitamin D to C or things like that. All can help you with your bone density as well too, because that is just as important as what you're doing in the gym. Other allies with regards to exercise. I'm familiar with Feeling Fit Club. They provide free classes for seniors in San Diego, in person and also virtual. I did some classes for them for a while, a couple years ago. It's a great group. They have a lot of expectations for their trainers. All their classes are going to involve some sort of strength and balance and agility for all levels. So check them out. Also, Silver Sneakers videos you're probably familiar with. A lot of gyms have group classes like aqua classes, and that's a good way to go as a group. You don't have to feel like you're singled out. It could be cheaper at that point too, but also you have good instruction and you're able to follow some good form. And if you want personalized experience, go to a gym for a personal trainer. Just make sure you have somebody who is specialized in working with your demographic. You don't want somebody who doesn't have that experience, because I know better about how to help you move in the gym, but a demographic, and also to challenge you safely so you can move better outside the gym. This is a good quote to kind of leave on here. This is from Ace, and this is actually geared toward people like me, fitness professionals, but it's just important for you to read this too. I know often you see things out there regarding the anti-aging exercise. I mean, what we want to focus on is exercise helps you minimize those impacts or the effects of it. It helps you move better in life and reduce that impact. So go easy on yourself to start exercising. Keep in mind of your expectations, what you want out of it. Really want you to be able to move better with more independence in your everyday life. So importance of showing up. I know you bunch of articles of somebody talking about the best shape of their life. That's fine. It does not have to be you. What's important to be you is that you're able to pat yourself on the back. You're being consistent about moving better, because the important thing is not being sedentary and not exercising, because that's when things happen where you're more sedentary. You can't do the gardening, you can't do the golf because things aren't moving the way they should. The most important thing is to be consistent, whether it be going to aqua class or going for walks plus doing like 10 minutes of squats or pushing and pulling. That adds up. That helps you move better. And here, this is a good quote I want to leave you with by Arthur Ashe to kind of remind you about being good to yourself. Is resources that you have, start with those, whether it be online, with retirement community, or people that you know can help you move better, and do what you can. There's many organizations out there that want to help you, people like me, or aging facilities to help people move better in regards to exercise. There's always different ways to move better for you and to get stronger. Okay, anybody have any questions I can answer?
Yes, I do have a question.
Yes.
So you mentioned, what are the services that you provide at UCSD?
At UCSD, I work with the at WorkStrong. So WorkStrong is for employees entering a job. Those are large employees there, but outside of that, it's personal training. So like anybody has personal training there, I'm one of the people there, and so I kind of focus on people who are overcoming injuries, but kind of pretty much the general population there at UCSD. So
Including retirees.
Yes, ma'am. Yep, exactly.
So are you available then for personal training? Yes?
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
So we have to be signed up for the rec center.
Correct.
And
Membership.
all of
Yep.
membership.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. See a question in the chat. All right. Give an example of how to use dumbbells for strength training. Okay. So a good example of that is, let's say curls. That's a perfect example of curls. Like when I had somebody who was curling something up, that could be a good example of strength training with dumbbells. And one thing about dumbbells too, just to point out too, it really is going to focus on your stability. So it's a good way machines could be helpful at first to help to guide you through the pressing before you go to something like dumbbells. Walking, good question. Does walking count as strength training? Okay. Walking could be great for cardiovascular and for mobility, but it's not necessarily strength training. Possibly, let's say you're walking up an incline or walking upstairs, something like that, or walking with weight. It could be a good way to incorporate strength training. But if you want to really focus on strength training for your legs, you want to do something like a variation of lunges, a variation of squats for strength training. So, and also too, on top of that question is when I was talking about bone density, there's a lot of things talking about how walking is going to necessarily help that as much. The walking is great, but you want to focus on kind of moving with some kind of external weight while you're doing that. That's a great question. And so actually to add to that with walking is that to make sure that you're walking with some nice tall form and good posture while you're walking as well.
To follow up on the walking question,
Mm,
so if I do want to increase my bone density,
mm.
what would be an easy way to start incorporating something that would help that?
One of the easiest way, honestly, is stomping. And I'm not kidding. There's some study talk about just like stomping, that impact can help your bone density with your hips. A little bit goes a long way. I had a video of one of my clients, Ruth, doing that last time I was here. It's like stepping and stomping is a great way to kind of just work on that. And you could just do like, I don't know, 20 steps or something like that in regards to helping with that. Question: is there a formula for heart rate when working out? Is there some general number of repetitions to achieve weight training to build muscle? Good question. Okay, first off, with repetitions, generally it's like 6 to 12 repetitions for that. So you want your last rep to be the hardest. But if you're just starting out, see what you can do. Like say about like a 5 pound weight and you do 10 presses with that, that could be your starting point. What we want is if your first rep is super hard, that weight's probably too heavy. So you want to find a weight that you can do 6 to 10 reps and start from there. And heart rate formula, that's definitely good something to ask your doctor about if you have any heart rate issues. You don't want it to get too high, but at the same time, strength training can really help you with cardio. People underestimate that. You can definitely get your heart rate up in a safe way while you're strength training. It's something called intervals. Let's say I'm going to do 10 squats, take a break, and then do 10 bench presses and then go back to that. So your heart rate can help with that for sure. It's stretching suggested, 100%, 100%. So things like yoga, learning things like this, what we don't want is it's kind of like starting a car cold and flooring it. We want you to do some sort of stretching, especially for your shoulders and your hips. It could be something you learn from yoga. There's many good videos out there regards to stretching, or like foam rollers, and we all got to stretch better. I've had issues where I've gotten tight and try to strength train, you hurt yourself. So a good way to start yourself for success is find some sort of routine you can do, 5 to 10 minutes of like stretching before you start strength training. It could be going for a walk, do some calisthenics before you start pushing and pulling some weight for sure. And all of us are guilty of just getting it done and not doing the stretching. And a lot of times you want to make sure you're a little more limber before you start pushing and pulling weight. Question: is foam rolling considered a warm up? It can be. A lot of times, think of a warm up as preparing your body for the event that you're doing. If you are stretching really slowly and doing a really long stretch, and I'm doing something quickly, I'm not really warmed up for that. But it could be leading up to something differently. Let's say I'm doing some foam rolling and then I do some high steps to get my legs ready for a squat. So foam rolling is definitely a good start. I would say things like your legs and your arms could be good, but that could be something you could do after the workout for foam rolling because that helps things like your hamstrings and your back and your core for sure. But foam rollers are a great thing. A lot of people have a foam roller in their place and it's gathering dust, and it could be a good way to help your shoulder mobility, especially. And add to that too, another thing with warm ups, it helps get your heart rate up before you start working out more. Good question.
It's faster to ask the question and then type it.
I get it though. It's okay.
Um,
Fun activities. Sorry,
tools
go
to
ahead.
help us understand our heart rate. And for example, we have an iWatch or those other ones. And so understanding what the resting heart rate is sounds like a good place to start. And so the range of heart rate to really get your heart going, like you said, you need to talk to your doctor.
Right.
But there are some basic formulas.
There
And
are, yes.
and so when it comes to weight training, I would just use the same criteria that I, need to get my heart up to 130, just for example, for 5 minutes, I don't know how long, but it would apply the same to weight training.
100%. And also sometimes too, listen to your body. Like if you feel like you need to take a breath, like that's the time to take a break. Like it's so listening to your body is just important too, but your watch is definitely a good indicator and help you let you know what's going on for sure.
Yeah, you mentioned about bone density, and I think at our age, it's not about getting more bone density. It's not losing as much so fast.
Correct.
And you specifically mentioned stomping, and so would be going up and down steps, and walking obviously is one, but to really get your heart going up and down steps. Is there any research that has, monitored?
Regards to stepping upstairs.
Yeah. Yeah.
There probably is. But the one thing with stairs, it can be less impact than like walking up hills. It can be better for you. For
Walking up
sure.
hills. Okay.
Yeah, versus walking. Yeah. But incline, it's funny in that kind of a tangent, but that one, that Live to 100 thing in Netflix that I saw, a lot of the countries had like this cross section of incline and people who are really moving well. It's interesting. That just walking up incline can help people a lot in regards to their quality of life. But just especially if you're walking upstairs, you want to just be mindful of your form. It's not a race. You want to keep yourself tall. You want to just notice how your foot is hitting the step and take your time with that. And also find places you have an option of how high the steps are for sure too. All right, I see a question. Is any suggestions on fun activities to increase bone density? Sports. I mean, if you like things like pickleball or things like that, it's a great way to turn your brain off and have fun. Or, just to get out dancing as well too. If you like doing things like salsa or things like that, when you're moving in different directions and like giving a little bit of impact, it's a great way to turn your brain off and get some help with that for sure.
Okay. Years ago, I took a free weight class at the rec, and I would say it was probably the best condition I'd been in my whole life. Um, but they also did some testing, like, you're sitting on the floor with your legs out and just bending forward. Basically, some simple analysis of our different range of motion and analysis or testing how much one can carry right now or lift or whatever. Is that something that you would do in the private training? Or is there a service at UCSD where we could get a baseline? Like when we go to PT, they're required to, do all those analysis and see how you evolve and change. But for weight training and all of that, I'd like to know what my baseline is.
Right. A lot of times they have something, maybe some kind of movement assessment that they'll do. They will have different way of changing like your range of motion of your hips and your shoulders, and also we're talking about the stretching thing is part of it as well. Every trainer might have a different way of doing that. We all want to just see what your baseline is for sure. On top of that, it's might be movements you're not used to doing, and we're going to see how your flexibility is. And a lot of times too, it could be pretty simple quote unquote to fix, because it could be something focusing your hamstring mobility or things in your back. You might have the mobility in your back or your spine. But yeah, there's always good to have a baseline. Sometimes with people, it's helpful just to have them like, just show me what your squat is. And we'll kind of work from that to kind of hack and see how to help them get better at that when they're sitting down.
Okay. Thank you.
I don't see any other questions, but if any come in, you can answer. But thank you so much for joining us. I think we all learned so much. Is it all right with you if we are able to upload this recording in the question and answer section? Okay, great. For the people that weren't able to be here with us today, I think we can all give him a hand. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for your great questions. I appreciate it.
Have a great day, everyone. Thank you. Goodbye.
Happy Friday.